Right, I had a request to explain a little bit about lighting. So this is what I'm going to do. I've got a very simple model here. This is just take the roof off. I've got a room with four rooms, sort of a building with four rooms. Some of them have got windows, some of them haven't. And I'll set up some camera positions. I'll put the roof back on. There's a floor, and each of those walls is defining a particular room. So if I go to level 0, I've got a section cut through there as well. I'm going to put the ceilings in first. So with lights, when we play around with lighting, I've got the systems tab set up as well, because this is a way to load lighting fixtures. It's not the only way. You can go to the insert tab and click on load family. That's another way of doing it, but it's sometimes a nice little way to start off. Gives you a little bit of exposure to this, so it doesn't become massively daunting later on down the line, but this is what we're looking for, lighting fixtures. I have loaded a few into the project already and just run through some of the settings. Other things that I need to cover with you, things like the sun path. So sun path on. So this is what the sun path looks like. There we go. There's our smiley face. Where's the sun? There's the sun at the moment. And so you can move the sun around the sun path, and when you get to these sorts of things, you can move it up and down. And then we got a little smiley mouth there, explaining why you should never put one on a drawing, because this is what it's actually doing. This is accurate. The ones that you tend to put on drawings end up being either like that or like this, and you don't really understand what they mean. So this is why we keep this sort of thing to the software. As long as we know where north, south, east and west is and which hemisphere we're in, the rest of it we can work out ourselves. So sun path, that comes in handy. Also the shadows, so shadows off at the moment. Shadows can be turned on, and as I move the sun around, then obviously the shadows are going to move. And if I move them up and down, this is the azimuth, this is the angle that it's in the sky, then obviously we're going to get longer or shorter shadows, and that will have a bearing on whether we render internal or external and lighting from the sun or lighting from the artificial lights, or a combination of both. Okay, so this is sort of the thing we're going to cover. So I'll turn off shadows, turn off sun path for the moment. The first thing we need to be aware of is if you want to put ceiling lights in, then you have to have a ceiling. So the first thing we're going to do is pop in a ceiling, just so you're aware of the process. There's a ceiling button, so we click on that, and we've got this automatic ceiling or a sketch ceiling. Now, because I have defined the rooms, or the rooms have been put in, the walls define a boundary object, just so you know what that means. If I click on this wall, it should say room bounding. There you go. That means that this is defining a room. This one will have the same thing, room bounding, and so will these ones. So that means that when they sort of meet together, they define a room. You don't have to have room bounding. You can have a wall which doesn't bound a room, and you can put in your own sort of room partition from the room separator option up here. Okay, so that's a little aside, but the ceiling, you see the little red line that's highlighting that. If I turn that on, there you go. You can see it a little bit better now. That's a ceiling. This is a ceiling. This is a ceiling, and this is a ceiling. I'm just clicking into these spaces, and I get the warning saying none of the ceilings can be seen because it's above the cut plane. So if I go on this, right click and go to view, then we can see the ceilings. So these come in, and they are currently set to a compound ceiling. And if I wanted to change the thickness, this is kind of made up of various bits. Edit type, go to the structure option, and then we'll see that it's a metal stud which is holding the ceiling up, and then we've got gypsum wallboard. So let's assume that that's what we've got. What I am going to do, however, is move this up. So if I right click on this and say select all instances in entire project, and height offset is to 600. This is from the floor, not from the sort of the roof or another level. It all works from the floor. I'll say 3 meters for that. 3M, and this will move up. In fact, all of them have moved up. Okay, so If I look at my ceiling plan, it just shows like a little rectangle. If I changed one of these to a grid, then we get to see this. And with the grid, you can move this around so you can redefine the position of it, or use the align tools to align a grid to it as well. Always a debate as to whether where you leave your partial tiles, but anyway, that's for another day. So one of these has got grid ceiling in, and the rest of them got this as flat ceiling. Beyond that is the underside of the roof. If I delete that, we can see where the roof apex is. Control Z to get back. So when you position wall lights, then clearly they will fit onto the wall, and when you position ceiling lights, they will fit onto the ceiling. There's also floor lights, which will align themselves to the floor. So back to systems, lighting fixture. Now I've got this one, Studio Light. I'll explain more about that later. Load family, let's do that, and we go down to lighting. It's not under electrical, under lighting. Architectural, MEP lighting is kind of bits of the boxes, and these have much more of a what's the word I'm looking for? So the MEP lights, they're much more technical than the architectural lights. These are all about light. These are all about sort of power and everything else to work out exactly what sort of loadings you'd need, I'm guessing. So architectural, internal or external, we'll go internal, and then we've got ceiling, fan type lights, and then ceiling lights, downlighters, floor lights, etc., etc. Some symbols, luminaires. Again, these don't have lights. It's only the ones with the yellow thing in them that have lights. So let's take pendant fixture 2. We'll have that one, and then we can fit that to our ceiling. Okay, I'll pop some in this one, like so. Maybe I'll put one of them in there. So, and I'll move these down a bit, like that. You can spend a little bit more time getting these looking right. And then to see them in sort of the 3D view, we need to create a camera view. Now we're looking at the ceiling plan here. Some of you don't even realize these things exist, but the ceiling plan is given to us and created, not always when we create a level, but if we want to create another sort of ceiling plan, then that's on the view tab, and plan views, which is here, and then a reflected ceiling plan. Okay, that's what a ceiling plan is, a reflected ceiling plan. It's looking from the floor up, not down. And these will then live in here. So if I go back to my level 0, then we can't see the lights unless we looked up. And I'm pretty sure I don't have to be in this view to put a camera in, but I'm going to put the camera in on the floor plan, and we'll use this little house picture, drop down to the camera, and I'll come into this room first, and I'll click and hold and drag, and then just kind of click again. And this is going to create a view with some pendant fixtures. If I go on to my shaded view, then we get to see what a nasty little light fitting it is, but anyway, it is a fitting nonetheless, and we can stretch this out a little bit. If I want to sort of manipulate this, then this is the tool I use. I don't use my sort of mouse wheel, I use the full navigation wheel. Orbit, if I click and hold on that, then I can pivot around. If I want to reposition the center of it, I click and hold on that, and then position the ball maybe there. That's going to center the thing, and then I can orbit around that bit. I can pan, I can look up and down. This is this one here, so dollying up and down. So maybe, if I'm taller, then I'll be up here. If I'm shorter, I'm down here. That's the way these things work. And I can then walk forwards, walk back. That dot is, I need to move that around, click on walk to go through the walls or not through the walls. Plus sign to speed up. Okay, these are for sort of walkthroughs, which I don't recommend in this program, but anyway. So we'll have a look at what sort of effect we get if we render this. So click on the little show rendering dialog, and we want to make sure I'm going for a medium because I want to get through this fairly quickly. And the lighting, exterior sun only, or we can go sun and artificial exterior. As we're an interior view, then we'll go interior and we'll go artificial only to start off with. That opens up anything that says artificial, or whether it's with the sun or not, opens up the artificial lights option. So I can click on this, and then these are our light fixtures. And I can dim them from 0 is off, 1 is full illumination, and then you've got variations in between. I can turn them on or turn them off. Okay, so this is what this dialog box does. So then I can say OK to that and hit the render and see what sort of nasty render we get. I'm going to keep pausing this until we get the render through, but it shouldn't take too long, but it's still too long for the purposes of this. And then when we get to the end of that, I can show you some adjustment settings. Right, so this is what we have, and as I just before I wind this little section up, we've got the adjust exposure. So we might end up with something that's a little bit too dark. We can increase the light. Okay, but notice these things are now bright. This is not the greatest of render. My software or my graphics card, whilst a good one, for some reason and recommended, doesn't work very well with Revit. So anyway, hit the adjust exposure, and I've been messing around with these settings as well, but it kicks off at around about 14, which is quite dark. Apply that so it kind of looks like that. Take it up a bit lighter. The more you mess around with this, the more sort of these things. So I can click on reset, and it only goes back to what it was. These might be the settings for interior. Exterior is slightly different. So we can have brighter highlights. That doesn't really done anything. We can have darker shadows. That's taken out really dark, so we can lighten that up a bit. The saturation is going to affect the sort of colour from grey to sort of colourful, awful looking. And then the white point is sort of blue light to orange light. So all the way down there you get blue light, all the way up here you get sort of orangey, ochre light. So it normally stays around about 7,500. Okay, so exposure value, we can take that up a little bit brighter. So that's far too bright. So now we're getting a little bit more like it, so 6.5, maybe something like that. So this is, you get the picture. Okay, this is how you can adjust the sort of exposure of the image based on this, or in Photoshop you can do it as well. Okay, so I'm going to not save this to project. I'm just going to show the model. We're back where we started, and then I'm just going to stop this now, and we'll look at adding in some studio lights just to make it look a little bit sort of brighter inside without affecting the intensity of these things, because we'll look at that after that.